Good evening. I'm Bill Buttell, and this is ABC News New York. Tonight, President Nixon is still in the hospital and probably will be till the end of the week, but his condition is improving. The Viet Cong have freed 2 Canadian members of the peacekeeping team after 17 days. A former major in the Air Force is expected to tell a Senate committee tomorrow that he was ordered to bomb Cambodia early in 1970 and to report that he had bombed South Vietnam instead. And Nolan Ryan of the California Angels has pitched his second no-hitter of the season, the first man to do that in 20 years. I'll have the details in just a moment.
The ABC Weekend News with Bill Buttell is brought to you by Viva, the absorbent paper towel that keeps on working even when it's wet.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I know. Let's do the Viva test they do on TV.
Now, I'll be Viva and you can be the other towel.
Okay.
Boy, Viva sure beats your towel.
Yeah, it sure does. And look, Viva is strong.
That's terrific.
Viva, it really absorbs faster.
Now, what do you want to do?
I sweat. Oh, I used to go to parties and perspire to be social, but I fell in with a fast crowd, and soon I'd go to parties and sweat. I knew I had a problem. So I turned to Dial, antiperspirant. It helps stop odor and wetness. When I just perspired, I'd use anything. But I sweat, so I need Dial antiperspirant. Thank you.
Dial antiperspirant in regular and dry powder.
President Nixon continues to improve at the Walter Reed Medical Center. He's still quite ill with viral pneumonia, but his doctors say the prognosis is excellent, which means he's expected to recover completely. We have a report on the president and his family today from ABC's Tom Jarrell.
Members of the Nixon family made their daily trip to his bedside. Mrs. Nixon, daughters Julie and Tricia, and son-in-law David Eisenhower visited in the afternoon. They and doctors who were keeping closer tabs on Mr. Nixon found him to be improving.
How's the president?
The president enjoyed a good night's sleep for the first time since his hospital admission. He continues to feel better and experiences some chest pain only with deep breathing. The physical examination this morning revealed a temperature of 99, and there has been some improvement in the congestion of both the right and the left lungs. The president's general overall medical condition is that of good improvement. He has, however, the expected malaise, the fatigue, and lack of energy that is seen with prolonged bed rest. Although the prognosis now is excellent, the chief concern is that the president will push himself too hard and too fast and perhaps slow down his recovery or possibly cause a relapse. He is still a sick man, but the improvement is considered to be acceptable.
The afternoon x-rays showed lung congestion has lessened. The president got out of his bed for 20-minute periods today, walked about his room, talked with staff members, and spent some time with his personal secretary, Rosemary Woods, discussing get-well messages which have flooded in. Doctors want to keep the president here till next Friday. He'll conduct business which the White House considers essential. That means the Phase 4 economic announcement should come while he's here, but not the meeting with Watergate Committee Chairman Sam Irving. Tom Jarrell, ABC News at Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland.
The Watergate hearings resume this week on the new schedule of 5 days a week, with the White House Special Counsel Richard Moore slated to wind up his testimony at the first session. Then comes another star witness, Herbert Kalmbach, former personal attorney to President Nixon and an active campaign fundraiser. Two members of the Irvin Committee spoke up today on the controversy over whether White House papers bearing on Watergate ought to be released. Senator Daniel Inouye, Democrat of Hawaii, said yes, they should be, and President Nixon should also make himself available to the committee. Senator Lowell Weicker, Republican of Connecticut, said he opposes any effort to force Mr. Nixon either to release documents or to appear.
How would you describe your husband, Miss Neal?
Ooh, my husband is a very demanding man. And he wants coffee. He wants it for breakfast. He doesn't drink it after lunch, but he has a cup in the evening. He adores Maxim. Maxim tastes like burnt coffee. That's the only coffee we have in our house. Maxim is the best coffee we've ever had.
We're in Boston to prove dogs who eat canned dog food will like cheese-flavored Gainsburgers.
I think he likes it. I never thought they'd like cheese. He eats it faster than the canned food.
What do you think he likes about it?
Imagine the cheese. It's usually quite finicky.
What type of dog food do you use?
Canned.
What do you think he's doing there?
He likes it. I'm shocked. I never thought he would eat it.
That's the reaction to cheese-flavored Gainsburgers from most canned dog food users we spoke with. Gainsburgers, the canned dog food without the can.
Hal Knight of Memphis, Tennessee, used to be a major in the Air Force serving in Vietnam. He is expected to tell a Senate committee tomorrow that he was ordered to falsify the records of his bombing in 1970. He says he was told to bomb Cambodia, but to report that he was bombing South Vietnam instead. This was before anyone admitted to bombing Cambodia and before Cambodia was invaded in April of 1970. The Viet Cong have finally released those 2 Canadian members of the peacekeeping team. The Viet Cong held them for 17 days, and now they've told the Canadians to stay out of Viet Cong territory unless they get permission to go in beforehand. The 2 Canadians were tired, but okay. A couple of years ago, it was said that the American oil companies were behind the war in Vietnam because they wanted the oil there. That accusation never got far, but now the oil companies think it might be a good idea. They reportedly are getting ready to spend something like $60 million starting in October hunting for oil in the waters off the coast of South Vietnam. Even though there's a shortage of oil here in the United States, the American oil men haven't been hunting for it like they used to. There are some good reasons why, as ABC's Roger Peterson reports now from Colorado.
Even with all of today's modern technology, drilling for oil is still pretty much of a gamble. Only 1 exploratory well in 9 actually finds oil. Only 1 in 50 finds a deposit large enough to make production worthwhile.
It's because of these odds, and more importantly, because of what the oil industry feels are a lack of incentives to explore, that the number of exploratory wells being drilled in this country today is half the number drilled in 1956. Industry spokesmen are quite blunt. Exploratory drilling is costly, and the return on the investment usually isn't worth it. A single well can cost from $100,000 to $3 million, depending on depth and location, with those long odds against success. But in spite of the complaints, oil companies are still doing some exploring. One, Amoco has found pockets of oil north and east of Denver, and by going slow has made enough on the finds to finance further exploration. Another half a mile below these 5,000-foot oil wells, Amoco has also located a natural gas area believed to be almost as large as Rhode Island. It's called the Wattenberg Field, and officials say it couldn't be developed economically until the industry got the incentive it needed when it received permission to charge higher rates for natural gas. Finding the oil or natural gas is only half the problem. Pipelines have to be laid to get the product to market, and scattered throughout the Wattenberg field are shut-in gas wells drilled and ready to produce that can't be used until the pipeline reaches them. And pipeline construction didn't start until the field looked big enough to warrant the investment. Finding and producing oil and natural gas is a complex, expensive process. But the oil people feel they'll soon get what they call the necessary further incentives, probably in the form of tax breaks, to speed up exploration, because the United States is becoming increasingly dependent on Middle Eastern oil, where the tap can be shut off at any time with a twist of national policy. Roger Peterson, ABC News at the Wattenberg Field near Denver.
Secretary of State William Rogers is in Japan, and he'll be talking about the problem of oil with the Japanese leaders in the next couple of days. He'll also be talking about the problem of the American dollar, which is not doing so well in relation to the Japanese yen and to the other major currencies. Those Americans traveling abroad feel the shake of the dollar more than the rest of us do. And ABC's Bob Young talked to some of them this weekend as they came back to New York City from Europe.
As sure as the descent of homebound tourist planes at New York's Kennedy Airport, the dollar has been dropping in value too in recent weeks, but ended substantially higher this week than last. Americans abroad found some comfort in airport reunions, an emotional offset to the decided discomfort of a week which saw the dollar sink to an average 20% loss in Europe since its official devaluation 5 months ago.
This is my second time in Portugal, and last time I was in Portugal I could afford a very good dinner, and now it was a little tight. So, it did hit a great deal.
I found the surprises in the prices when you had to pay $5 for a scotch and water in Cannes and $1 for a glass of beer. That, to me, seems a little prohibitive.
One world traveler had some strategic advice for those who might want to avoid areas of dollar decay. What do you think? Could you tick off the countries as to the best place in terms of the purchasing power of the dollar?
Well, I think Lisbon, in Portugal, Spain, Greece still has pretty good value. But beyond that, there isn't much left.
Some small-scale tactical support of the dollar is expected at the top of this week from Europe's central banks, but probably not enough to stop its fluctuations. Although all of the tourists abroad took more of a buffeting around from the ups and downs of the dollar than they did from their own flight home, many seemed ready to fasten their seatbelts again and have another go at the battle of the buck, given the chance to do so. Bob Young, ABC News, New York.
I'll have more news in just a moment.
Bowling hasn't changed much in the past 10 years, but the clothes we're wearing have. Today, most everything is synthetic. That's why a lot of us are using cold power. Cold power was specially formulated for synthetic, made to work in cold and warm water. We're also using it because now, with each coupon on cold power, when you bowl a game, you get an extra game free. Get your synthetics really clean and have a bowl on Colgate.
Stretch and seal is a better wrap by a long stretch. I'll show you why. You can twist wrap leftovers with Stretch and Seal. With any other plastic wrap, it untwists. Stretch and Seal stays twisted tight. Put a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich in a sandwich bag? It can get messy. Stretch and Seal wraps snug. Wrap in foil and you hide leftovers. Stretch and Seal lets you see if your food looks fresh without opening the package. Stretch and Seal, a better wrap by a long stretch.
Almost 20 years ago, Virgil Fireball Trucks of the Detroit Tigers lived up to his name and pitched 2 no-hitters in one season. That doesn't happen very often. In fact, it didn't happen again till today. Nolan Ryan of the California Angels was pitching against the Detroit Tigers with 1 no-hitter under his belt for the season. He pitched another one today, and he entered into the record books. A report narrated by ABC's Pat Brown.
It was a stunning performance all the way. With just 4 walks, Nolan Ryan struck out 17 Tigers, including Duke Sims 3 times on 11 pitches.
I've never hit off anybody that threw that much, that hard and had that good a control. It lifts or moves. It's not even, you don't even foul the ball off. Kind of a frustrating feeling, but you walk back to the bench and say, well, he's just better than I am right now.
Well, the last 2 innings were extremely tough. I seemed to have lost some on my fastball during that long inning. I was a little bit stiff, and I was concerned about it.
Maybe the best chance for a hit for the Tigers, Gates Brown in the 9th inning.
That's right. When he hit the ball, I thought it was through the infield. I knew that if it wasn't directly at Mioli, that it would be through the infield. And when I saw him catch the ball, that's when I decided right then that I wasn't going to let Norm beat me. Either I was going to walk him or make him hit my pitch.
Ryan's 17 strikeouts fell just 1 short of Bob Feller's American League record. And with this Norm Cash fly ball, Nolan Ryan became today only the 5th pitcher in modern Major League history with 2 no-hitters in the same season. Pat Brown, ABC News.
The score was 6-0 California over Detroit, so for Nolan Ryan, the news is very good this Sunday night.